settling, noticing whatever the noise in our heads sounds like or what our bodies are holding. Right about then, I remember that my shoulders are about 2 inches closer to my ears than they really need to be, right? And I let them relax a little, make some space. If yours have inched up during the service, between the prayer and the sermon, go ahead and let them sink back down. Make some space. We ease our way toward silent meditation. Sometimes there's a quote or a reading. I say, we continue in silence. And then maybe your forehead itches. You feel a cough coming on, right? 3 crayons roll off the edge of the children's activity table in the back and land on the floor with a clack, and then a tiny chair scrapes backward to retrieve them. There's a sneeze, and then a coughing fit. You notice that you're not even silent in your mind. Instead, you're replaying a conversation you had earlier, this time with better comebacks. Or you're thinking about what to eat for lunch. Someone roars down Carlisle without a muffler, and then the meditation song begins. Continuing on in this peaceful spirit, let us lift up some names, right? I know. Well, it is earnest of us to try. I think it's maybe even gutsy. But mostly it is really, really real. Yeah, because that's the way life really is. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And the human part is noisy. Or as I like to think of it, it's lively. We're alive, and life is a noisy, bustling thing. Quiet is relative, like really relative. In Washington State, Microsoft has built a room called an anechoic chamber, a room that's so insulated from outside noise, and it's so absorbent of inside noise that the volume of the room clocks in at negative 20.6 decibels. To put that in perspective, a human whisper is about 20 decibels, positive decibels. The sound of our breathing is about 10 decibels. The human ear can hear down to 0, and below that we're talking about sounds that humans can't hear. The sound of air molecules colliding with each other is negative 26 decibels. Did you know that air is constantly noisily colliding all around you, all the time? Air molecule collisions clock in at negative 26, and the sound level in the anechoic chamber is negative 20.6. When you stand in there with the door closed, you can hear your blood moving through your veins, and you notice that your eyes make a squishing sound when they blink. Ew, right? People find it intensely uncomfortable to experience that level of silence. So quiet is relative, but even relative quiet can be elusive. Some of us live in quiet places with ample time for contemplation. But some of us are the guardians of boisterous young children, or we are people with more than full-time jobs, or with 2 or 3 jobs, or we're oversubscribed volunteers, or we're living in multi-generational households with 2 dogs and a rescued parakeet, or we live on a busy city street. Quiet comes and goes as we move through different phases of our lives. Sometimes it arrives, frankly, uninvited, with the loss of a job or a loved one, and we long for the old familiar noise. And sometimes when we are in a noisy phase, we may forget to notice the particular kind of beauty and spiritual value it has. I'll admit that churches might bear some of the blame for this with our reverence for moments of silence. The writer Jamie Wright tells about her experience as a new mother and a new churchgoer in a Christian church. The church actually had a lot to offer a frazzled mom of 3 boys. When she first walked into the congregation's mom group, she says, "I knew without a doubt I was surrounded by my people, women with spit-up stains on their shoulders and chicken nugget chunks in their hair." Again, ew, right? They had dark circles under their eyes, and their purses were littered with granola bars and loose gummy bears. I've been there. I have to say that now that my kids are grown, though, I see that there's a working professional version of this. 5 lipsticks, an empty protein drink bottle, coupons I meant to use, a gym bag with melted deodorant in it, smartphone dinging, and hundreds of emails coming through. All of this is just to say it's not just moms. So you've probably got your own version of it, or you've had one, or you have one coming up soon and you just don't know it yet. Life involves a measure of chaos from time to time, or prolonged periods of busyness and noisiness. When Wright found the church mom group, she found a bunch of people who were trying to keep their wits in all the noise, with the help of a platter of muffins and some coffee. It wasn't perfect. She had a few doubts about some of the church teachings, but she kept that to herself until they got to a teaching about quiet time. She writes, "Mothers of young children are famous for trying to fit in quiet time during nap time, which also happens to be laundry time, dishes time, shower time, and stare off into space in stunned silence time." So it rarely works out. She was feeling this pretty acutely when the group read a book that offered a straightforward solution for busy moms. All they needed to do, the book said, was just get up earlier. Just get up earlier. No big deal. You can sleep when you're dead. It said that. You can sleep when you're dead. The book said this. Well, that was just too much. And when the group leader responded by saying, "Well, quiet time does need to be quiet," Wright erupted with what she describes as an unexpected volcano of molten outrage. I'm going to read what she says verbatim because it's just so quotable. "Oh, for Christ's sake," she told her fellow Christians. "Then call it loud time, call it chaos time, call it what it's supposed to be, which is intentional time, but do not tell me that God entrusted 3 kids to my care and protection, knowing full well what a total energy suck they are, with the expectation that I would keep them all alive and, also get up before the bleep crack of dawn to be quiet with God because I can sleep when I'm dead." She was using air quotes. "I don't think that's how it works," she continued. "I think God is with us, like day in and day out, in the chaos and the noise and the silliness of life. I mean, if you have the bandwidth to get up an hour earlier every day with your $12 scented candle and your fancy French press, good for you. You should totally do that. But I will not be getting up earlier. Nope. I'm going to honor God in my sleep. I will listen for God's voice in the wilderness and at the water park and under McDonald's indoor play structure, because that is my daily loud time, and God is faithful to meet me in the chaos. If that makes me a bad Christian, then I guess I'm a bad Christian. But tomorrow I'll be sleeping in, and I'm not even going to worry about it because I'm pretty sure I'll have plenty of quiet time with God when I'm dead." Drops the mic, right? Her book is called The Very Worst Missionary. There's a lot to love about this tirade. But what I want to lift up from it right now is the phrase intentional time. What characterizes a spiritually rich life is not quiet, but presence, intention. Maybe during busy, noisy phases, you long for stillness and you do find a way to make it happen. Or maybe what you need is a spiritual practice in the noise. A practice of breathing while you're on the go, on the floor, on the phone, or whatever. A practice of bringing your awareness to the present in all of its amped up, lustrous liveliness. Bringing your awareness to the spirit of life bursting forth in the questions, shouts, hops, and inch-per-month growth of a child, or to the flow that we exist in and we help shape with our responses to it. So my gift to you on this Mother's Day, whether you are a mother or not, whether you live with young children or multiple generations and 2 dogs and a parakeet or not, is the advice to trust your intuition about what you need spiritually. Sometimes our spiritual practice is embracing the noise. On the flip side, sometimes our spiritual practice is making some noise. I've been talking about the rather intimate spiritual realm, family and mind and consciousness. But now I want to turn our attention outward for a few minutes. After all, Mother's Day originated as a call for peace, and not a call for peace and quiet, but a call for peace among nations. Shalom, as it is written in the scriptures. But there, it doesn't mean just the absence of fighting. Shalom means peace and wholeness and completeness. The kind of peace that cannot exist when a few benefit at the expense of the many. Because there's no wholeness when only a part of the whole is allowed to thrive. Shalom cannot exist when some humans are treated as though their lives are worth less or even worthless. So we are not at shalom in our country. There has been progress over the years, but we're not at shalom yet, and this is a deeply spiritual matter. Right now, if you were to listen to the religious voices on TV in America, you'd think that church-going Americans are concerned primarily with ending abortion, making it harder to get birth control, preventing gay and transgender people from participating fully in society, instituting school prayer, being on guard against Muslims, expelling immigrants, and defending the right to buy as many guns of any kind as you want whenever you want. What you don't hear from religious voices on TV is concern about ending child poverty, caring for the outcast and the vulnerable, providing health care, and ending the interrelated sins of racism and mass incarceration. Which is strange, because most of those voices are Christian, and Jesus spoke all the time about the poor and the outcast. He personally demonstrated overcoming one's own prejudice and honoring the inherent worth and dignity of all people. And he healed people right and left, and he never made them file for bankruptcy for it or even scrape together a copay. He just did it. He made them well. And he did it all unarmed. Am I right? I'm not just bringing this stuff up because Jesus did it, though. I'm bringing it up because today in our state and all across our country, these unaddressed things are causing a lot of suffering. More than 40 million Americans subsist below the poverty line, 40 million Americans. New Mexico is #1 for child poverty. We're all just one health catastrophe away from personal economic disaster. Meanwhile, the 400 wealthiest Americans possess more wealth than the bottom 64% of the country's population. That means 400 people have more money than 204 million people at the bottom. Not even the bottom 64%, right? That's most. The rich have gotten richer while the education and housing and food programs are cut and regular folks are told there's just not enough. And when you pan back and you look at the whole system from the sky or from what you might call a God's eye view, you see that white people as a group are doing a lot better than everybody else. These are issues that we talk about a lot here at First Unitarian, and they're preventing us from shalom, from peace and from wholeness. We're hobbled by these problems as a society. They're interrelated. Mass incarceration, poverty, an economy tailored to the rich and revolving around seemingly endless wars, environmental destruction for the sake of profit. These issues are all intertwined and they're all solvable. They're solvable problems. What has to happen to solve them is that people have to come together and insist that they be solved. It's not a matter of liberal versus conservative politics. These issues have persisted across the years, no matter who was in charge of the country. And people across the political spectrum have the minds and the frameworks and the ability to work for shalom. And we need one another to get there. Right now, across the eastern half of our country, and in a few western states, including here in New Mexico, about 38,000 people are taking up these interrelated issues, and they're bringing diverse groups together, and they're amplifying the voices of the poor. I'm talking about the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, which is values-based and it's nonviolent. It's grounded in partnership, interdependence, and dignity. And our denomination, the Unitarian Universalist Association, is a partner in this growing movement. Today, after the second service, I'm going to book it straight to the airport and get on a plane to Washington, D.C. There, I'll join clergy and lay people from across the country for the campaign's big first major event, 40 days of what they're calling coordinated, nonviolent, moral fusion, direct action. The fusion part is about the way these things are all interconnected and people are coming together to deal with them. Tomorrow afternoon in D.C. and in 38 state capitals, including Santa Fe, the Poor People's Campaign is going to lay out a set of imperatives that cannot be ignored. Here in New Mexico, people are gathering on the east side of the Roundhouse in Santa Fe at 2 o'clock tomorrow. Susan Peck and our Justice Coordinator, Beth Elliott, are going to be there, and I encourage you to join them if you can. Help us get this little movement off the ground here in New Mexico. We need all the help we can get with it. Demonstrations are going to continue every Monday for 6 weeks, lifting up a series of these interrelated issues along the way. Now, our nation's leaders might try to ignore these imperatives that cannot be ignored, right? And that's why after the 40 days, this new movement is going to continue on, and I hope it grows and grows. Following the 40 days, there's going to be a massive voter registration and get out the vote drive for the midterm elections, and we'll be developing and strengthening fusion, grassroots organizing in each state. Lively, life-affirming spirituality from the inside out. That's what it's all about. Blessings to you on this Mother's Day.
I invite you to rise in body or spirit to sing another song by Melanie DeMore. This is one, and soul singers, come on up. This is one